I'm here with Ian Melkonian, a Boston area realtor, where today we're going to be talking about rising rent prices in the Boston area. Ian, thanks for coming on. I'll allow you to introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
Thank you, JD. Yeah, my name is Ian Melkonian. I'm a realtor in the greater Boston area for Lillian Montalto Signature Properties.
Thanks for coming on, Ian. So the story is that Boston is tying, and by some models, passing San Francisco for the second most expensive place to rent in the country, and by a lot of models, passing for the most expensive place to invest. If you could point to one contributing factor as to why that's happening, what is it?
Yeah, so the reason we're kind of seeing that difference in rent prices is because, when the pandemic hit, we saw a mass migration of people move out of the city. And now that people are, they're coming back to normalcy, people are coming back to their jobs, they're in person, people are moving back from, the greater Boston area back into the city. So rent prices are jumping back up when before they were plunging. Now, I think different coasts are handling the pandemic differently. So on, the West Coast, people are still, on Zoom, their jobs aren't in person. So we've seen, a less increase in rent prices in January. Like in the Business Insider article that we're talking about, in January we saw a 5% increase in Boston because there's that influx of people coming back into the city. Where on the West Coast, I think it was only a 1% or a 1% and change difference because there's not as many people going back into the city.
Obviously, there's a million reasons to live in Boston, but what makes it such an attractive market for investment?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple different reasons. One, there's such a diverse property mix. You can go for triple deckers or multifamilies outside of the city, in Dorchester's and surrounding towns, or you can go for brownstones in Beacon Hill or Back Bay, or luxury condos in the up and coming Seaport district. So, I think that's a major reason as to why people are moving to the city, why it's such a sought after investment area. Also, you have different sections within Boston, like I mentioned, the up-and-coming Seaport District. 10 or 15 years ago, that was leveled, industrial wasteland. Now, luxury condo buildings, entertainment venues, hotels. It's more that New York-esque feel. Or if you want the old-school Boston feel, you can go to a North End or a Beacon Hill. So, there's that diverse property mix and also the diversity in the types of towns. And I think one more factor as to why Boston is so great is the employment landscape, right? So I think we were rated #1 in the country for startups, which ties directly into the venture capital scene that we have here in Boston. And also, if we're talking about employment in Boston, we can't forget, healthcare, right? We have some of the best, if not the best, hospitals in the country and in the world. So there's a lot of, what comes along with those great, hospitals like Mass General, Beth Israel, Tufts. There's a lot of amazing healthcare workers, and they're moving into the city because their jobs are here, right? So they're living in apartments in Boston or right outside of the city. So, yeah, I think those are a few reasons as to why Boston is such a sought-after area.
So obviously there's a huge market for those high-income earners in Boston, but obviously there's always going to be that market for college students. They're always going to take up that population in Boston. So you've worked with college students.
Yep.
How do they handle that approach with these high rents and finding these apartments?
Yeah, so, the rental process, I think it's something that you can go about alone. You can find an apartment, you can sign a lease on your own, but, we always recommend working with a realtor because, they're able to present you as a tenant in the best light to that landlord. So, as we see right now where there's not a lot of, units on the market, it's more of a competitive space, just like it is in, the housing market. A realtor is by your side being able to present you as a tenant in the best light possible to the landlord. Now, in terms of handling the rent prices on their end, now, if you're, you don't have roommates, you're living in a studio or a one bedroom, that's, where you're going to see it's more costly. You can get a studio for luckily $1,600, maybe, more likely $1,700, $1,800, $1,900. When you bring in roommates, if you want roommates, that's where you can see your rent price decrease down to $1,100, $1,200, $1,300. So that's a way that people are handling because it is a burden on college students who are full-time college students. They may not even have a job or they're only working part-time. So landlords are looking for that solid credit score and that solid monthly income, and they just don't have it. So another way of getting around that is by using a guarantor or a co-signer, which is basically, an aunt, an uncle, dad, mom, who signs on and guarantees the lease with you, basically saying that, if I'm your guarantor, I'm saying that if JD can't pay his rent, I'm financially responsible for paying his rent. And that adds a layer of security for the landlord who sees, okay, they have, their lease is backed by someone who has that solid income and that solid credit. So it's a lot more likely for you to get into an apartment as a college student who has low credit score maybe or a lower income.
Yeah, I remember recently going through that experience with my dad. He was like, oh, I don't want to sign on this, but that crazy market.
Same with me. Yeah, I use my dad as my guarantor.
Yep, absolutely. So obviously with everything we discussed, the market is just insane, not only here in Boston, but everywhere.
Yep.
When houses go on the market, they're selling for tens of thousands of dollars above asking price. So you've gone through that experience with clients recently. Do you have any experiences just with clients trying to find those apartments, going through the selling process, trying to find these places? Because once they go on the market, if clients are looking for anything specifically, or basically anything in general, they're going off the market like that and above asking price. So do you have any unique experiences in recent times just dealing with this crazy market?
Yeah, in terms of rentals, that's why I always recommend working with a realtor, because they're able to kind of negotiate and work for you on your side. And in this competitive landscape where there's not as many units on the market, it really is beneficial to have someone by your side who's able, and who has experience in this market. Now, that's rentals. In terms of the housing market, it's a whole lot different. The landscape for buyers out there is very competitive. So, and one of the major reasons of that is because we have such a major inventory issue here in Massachusetts. So, take for example Tewksbury, a town 35 minutes north of Boston. You might see on a given week only 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 properties in a week that's on the market. Now, Tewksbury is rated one of the best towns to live in Massachusetts. So obviously you're going to have more than 2 or 3 or 4 home buyers looking in that area. So that's where you kind of can see where you see the competitiveness, where you're seeing 5, 10, 15, maybe 20. I've had offers on properties that have 28 offers on a property, and that's what's creating it to go 10, 20, 50, 100,000 over asking. So it really is competitive out there for buyers right now, but it's not an impossible market to be in. And if you're looking to buy a home, now is the time, because it's only going to get harder as the year goes on. And if you're looking to sell your home, now is also the time, because like I said, inventory is such a major issue right now. So we're seeing properties go on the market Thursday or Friday. They're hosting open houses on Saturday and Sunday and private showings. And then by Monday or Tuesday, they have an offer accepted and the house is under agreement. So it really is a competitive landscape out there, but that's why it is beneficial to work with a realtor, both on rentals and in the housing market.
Do you see this landscape continuing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, no one can tell you. Anyone that says they know what's going to happen this year, it doesn't, because, there's forecasts, of course, but we can't predict. Now, I think for home buyers, interest rates are definitely going to rise this year. So that's why I say if you're looking to buy a home, now is the time, because it's only going to get more expensive to borrow money to buy a home going forward. Hopefully the inventory issue, starts to, get better as the weeks and months go along. We'll see what it's like when we enter into the summer market. But if you're looking to buy or sell a home or find an apartment, now is the time.
That's all I have for you today. Thanks so much for joining me.